Okay, tonight is the 2nd of August 2011, and this is the 17th night talking on the Digha Nikaya Suttas. Tonight we come to Sutta 22, Mahasatipatthana Sutta, the greater Satipatthana Discourse. This, in the Digha Nikaya, this is one of the more technical suttas. Thus have I heard. Once the Lord was staying among the Kurus. There is a market town of theirs called Kammasadhamma, and there the Lord addressed the monks. Monks, Lord, they replied, and the Lord said, there is, monks, this one-way path to the purification of beings, for the overcoming of sorrow and distress, for the disappearance of pain and sadness, for the gaining of the right path, for the realization of Nibbana, that is to say, the four intense states of mindfulness. What are the four? Here, monks, among abides contemplating body in the body, ardent, clearly aware and mindful, having put aside hankering and fretting for the world. He abides contemplating feelings in feelings. He abides contemplating mind in mind. He abides contemplating Dhamma in Dhamma, ardent, clearly aware and mindful, having put aside hankering and fretting for the world. Stop here for a moment. There are some books they translate. There is, monks. The only way. There is the only way to the purification of beings. The Pali word is ekayano mago, and the more correct translation, the Venerable Bhikkhu Nyanamoli, the English monk who has passed on, he translated it as the path leading one way only. That's the meaning. This Satipatthana, it leads only to the purification of beings, for the overcoming of sorrow and distress. It is not the only way, because the only way is actually the Noble Eightfold Path. And inside the Noble Eightfold Path, you have the 37 Bodhipakya Dhammas. And Satipatthana comprises the 4 Satipatthana inside there. So 4 out of 37, it is not the only way. There's also the Iddhipada, there's also the right Vayama, the 4 bases of psychic power, the 4 right efforts, the 5 faculties, the 5 powers, the 7 factors of enlightenment, the Bojjhangas, and the 8 Noble Eightfold Path. These make up 37 Bodhipakya Dhammas. So, Satipatthana is one of the several things you need to practice. So it is not the only way. It is the path leading one way only. Or here you can say one way path. And among abides contemplating body in the body. Kaye kaya nupasi viharati, dwells contemplating or abides contemplating the body in the body. This is the literal translation, the body in the body. So what it means is, you see, for example, one of the bodies mentioned later is the breath body. So when you contemplate the breath body, you notice the breath going in and the breath going out, going in, going out. But the mind, our mind is a very efficient thing. So while you are contemplating your breath, thoughts can come in. You can be thinking about your office, you can be thinking about your family and all that. And yet you are still mindful of your breathing. So that is not contemplating the breathing in the breathing. You are contemplating the breathing among many thoughts. So here it says contemplating the breathing in the breathing, devoid of other things. That's why it says, abides contemplating the body in the body, not any other thing. Ardent, clearly aware and mindful, having put aside hankering and fretting for the world. This hankering and fretting is sometimes translated as covetousness and grief for the world. And how, monks, does a monk abide contemplating the body in the body? Here a monk, having gone to the forest or to the root of a tree or to an empty place, sits down cross-legged, holding his body erect, having established mindfulness before him. Mindfully he breathes in, mindfully he breathes out. Breathing in a long breath, he knows that he breathes in a long breath. And breathing out a long breath, he knows that he breathes out a long breath. Breathing in a short breath, he knows that he breathes in a short breath. And breathing out a short breath, he knows that he breathes out a short breath. I'll stop here for a moment. So here, what do you mean by having established mindfulness before him? When you have mindfulness before you, that means you are in full view of mindfulness. Practicing in full view of mindfulness. You are not seeing any other thing. Only having mindfulness in front of you. He trains himself thinking, I will breathe in, conscious of the whole body. He trains himself thinking, I will breathe out, conscious of the whole body. He trains himself thinking, I will breathe in, calming the whole bodily volition. This one is Kaya Sankara. He trains himself thinking, I will breathe out, calming the whole bodily volition. Just as a skilled turner or his assistant in making a long turn knows that he is making a long turn, and in making a short turn knows that he is making a short turn. So too a monk in breathing in a long breath knows that he breathes in a long breath, and so trains himself thinking, I will breathe out, calming the whole bodily volition. I stop here for a moment. So here, when he talks about the whole body, it's the whole breath body. So you are conscious of the breath body. But later books like the Visuddhimagga, they tell you to be conscious of your tip of your nose or of your upper lip. But that is not conscious of the breath body. Here the sutta says, conscious of the breath body. So if you want, you can follow the breath in and out. There's nothing wrong with following the breath in and out. And then, or some people, they want to notice the breath, say inside the nostril, the breath going in. I can feel the breath going to the nostril and going out like that. Whichever is obvious to you, you have to make it very natural. You must not, what they say, si pan, say pan. Because each person in meditation, each person, a particular technique might suit one person, it might not suit another. So you have to experiment and find out what is natural to you. So he's conscious of the breath body, and then he calms the bodily volition. This bodily volition, Kaya Sankara, is the breathing. In the dependent origination, when they talk about volition or Sankara, there is volition, and they talk about three types of Sankara, Kaya Sankara, Vachi Sankara, and Chitta Sankara. That is in dependent origination. And Kaya Sankara, it is mentioned, it is specifically breathing. Vachi Sankara is thinking, because when you want to speak, you must think. Then only you start speaking. And Chitta Sankara is perception and feeling. When you have perception and feeling, it means also that you have consciousness. Only when you have consciousness, the mind can start to work. So for the body to live, for the body to function, You got to have breathing. If there's no breathing, the body will die. So the volition, the body volition, for the body to exist, for the body to function, the breath starts. The breath starts. Without the breath, the body cannot function. That's why the body volition is the breathing. So he calms the breathing, and then if he breathes in short, he knows it's a short breath. If he breathes in long, he knows it's a long breath. Just like a skill turner. Okay. So hereby is contemplating body in the body internally, contemplating body in the body externally, contemplating body in the body both internally and externally. Hereby is contemplating arising factors in the body. Hereby is contemplating vanishing factors in the body. Hereby is contemplating both arising and vanishing factors in the body. Or else, mindfulness that there is a body is present to him just to the extent necessary for knowledge and awareness, and he abides independent, not clinging to anything in the world. And that, monks, is how a monk abides contemplating body in the body. Stop here for a moment. So here, contemplating the body in the body internally is contemplating your own breath. Here we are talking about breath. Or your own body. And contemplating body in the body externally is other people's body, there's other people's breath. And these arising factors, the Pali is samudaya dhamma, and vanishing factors is vaya dhamma. Samudaya dhamma, you can see, is arising states in the body, and vanishing states in the body. But the great translator, Bhikkhu Nyanamoli, he has translated it as arising factors in the body and vanishing factors in the body. In other words, the factors that make for the arising of the body and the factors that make for the vanishing of the body. Okay. Again, the monk, when walking, knows that he is walking. When standing, knows that he is standing. When sitting, knows that he is sitting. When lying down, knows that he is lying down. In whatever way his body is disposed, he knows that that is how it is. So he abides contemplating body in the body internally, externally, and both internally and externally. And he abides independent, not clinging to anything in the world. And that, monks, is how a monk abides contemplating the body in the body. Stop here for a moment. So this last part is about the four postures, to be aware or mindful of the four postures. Now we come to sampajanya, clear awareness. Again, a monk, when going forward or back, is clearly aware of what he is doing or mindful of what he is doing. In looking forward or back, he is clearly aware of what he is doing. In bending and stretching, he is clearly aware of what he is doing. In carrying his inner and outer robe and his bowl, he is clearly aware of what he is doing. In eating, drinking, chewing and savoring, he is clearly aware of what he is doing. In passing excrement or urine, he is clearly aware of what he is doing. In walking, standing, sitting, falling asleep and waking up, in speaking or in staying silent, he is clearly aware of what he is doing. So he abides contemplating the body in the body internally, externally, and both internally and externally. And he abides independent, not clinging to anything in the world. And that, monks, is how a monk abides contemplating body in the body. So here, another practice is mindfulness, general mindfulness. Whatever you are doing, you are aware, you are in the here and now. As I mentioned the other day, a lot of people, they are not in the here and now. They their minds are elsewhere. So, for example, they are cutting the vegetable, and if their mind goes elsewhere, they'll cut their finger. So it's dangerous. Or if you're walking in the road and you're thinking of your this and that, then you might fall into the drain by the roadside. Or get knocked down by a car because you're not mindful what's going on around you. So it's sampajanya, but sampajanya, general mindfulness, is not so important as sati. Sati is being aware of only 4 objects, the body, feelings, mind, or Dhamma. You can only be aware of one thing at a time. So either you're aware or mindful of the body, or of feelings, or of the mind, or of Dhamma. It's a specific, sati is a specific mindfulness. It is not general mindfulness. Whereas here, sampajanya is general mindfulness. General mindfulness is more basic. It's more elementary. Just like you have to go to elementary school before you can go to university. So you notice that sati is a factor of the Noble Eightfold Path. Because it is important, it is a factor of the Noble Eightfold Path. But general mindfulness here, sampajanya, is not a factor of the Noble Eightfold Path. Sampajanya or general mindfulness is something that you have to start with. After you learn to be mindful generally, then only you direct your mindfulness to a specific object. One of the 4 objects of sati, then you only then you enter the noble. You are practicing the Noble Eightfold Path. If you are practicing general mindfulness, you are not practicing the Noble Eightfold Path because it's not a factor in there. So these are the various things you can practice concerning the body. One is the breath body. Another one is the 4 postures of your body, whether you are walking, standing, sitting, or lying down. And then general mindfulness of what you are doing. Now we come to the 32 parts of the body. Again, the monk reviews this very body from the soles of the feet upwards and from the scalp downwards, enclosed by the skin and full of manifold impurities. In this body, there are head hairs, body hairs, nails, teeth, skin, flesh, sinews, bones, bone, marrow, kidney, heart, liver, pleura, spleen, lung, mesentery, bowels, stomach, excrement, bile, phlegm, pus, blood, sweat, fat, tears, tallow, saliva, snot, synovic fluid, urine. Just as if there were a bag open at both ends, full of various kinds of grain, such as hill rice, paddy, green gram, kidney beans, sesame, husk rice, and a man with good eyesight were to open the bag and examine them, saying, "This is hill rice, this is paddy, this is green gram, these are kidney beans, this is sesame, this is husk rice." So too, a monk reviews this very body. In this body there are head hairs, etc., etc. So he abides contemplating body in the body internally, externally, and both internally and externally. And he abides independent, not clinging to anything in the world. And that, monks, is how a monk abides contemplating the body in the body. So here, this is also called the asubha, this meditation on the impurities or the unattractiveness of the body. We are so used to seeing a body only externally, and as they say, beauty is skin deep. When you see somebody and you think she is very beautiful or he is very handsome, you are only talking about the outer skin, skin deep. But when you contemplate all these parts inside the body, then that person is no more so beautiful or so handsome, all these unpleasant things inside the body. Here, I think there's no brain. Sometimes they put the brain inside here, making 32 parts. Sometimes they don't put the brain, so there is 31 parts. Now we come to the four elements. Again, a monk reviews this body, however it may be placed or disposed, in terms of the elements. There are in this body the earth element, water element, fire element, air element, or wind element. Just as if a skilled butcher or his assistant, having slaughtered a cow, were to sit at a crossroads with the carcass divided into portions, so a monk reviews this very body in terms of the elements. There are in this body the earth element, water element, fire element, air element. So he abides contemplating body in the body internally, etc. And he abides independent, not clinging to anything in the world. And that, monks, is how a monk abides contemplating the body in the body. So here, this is contemplating the body in terms of the four elements. In the suttas, rupa, the physical world, is composed of four things: earth element, water, fire, and wind element. The earth element represents hardness, hardness or softness. When anything is hard, you say that is the earth element. The water element is anything that's liquid. Liquids tend to cohere together. So anything liquid, we call it the water element. The fire element is the heat element. Anything that is hot or cold, lacking heat, that is the fire element. The air or wind element is anything that moves. Because there is the air element inside us, so our blood moves, and our winds inside us move either out through our mouth and nose as we burp, out to the anus, and the breathing also. So all this is the wind element. So this physical world being composed of these four elements. If you think carefully, these four elements are just a perception. For example, hot or cold is just a perception. Hard or soft is also a perception. Movement is also a perception. So this perception is a kind of consciousness. Is a kind of consciousness. So actually, if you consider carefully, the physical world is also in consciousness. It's only a movement of the mind that you think there is a physical world. Now we come to the cemetery or the corpse contemplations. Again, a monk, as if he were to see a corpse thrown aside in the charnel ground or in the cemetery. 1, 2, or 3 days dead, bloated, discolored, festering, compares this body with that, thinking, this body is of the same nature. That means my body is same as this corpse. It will become like that. It is not exempt from that fate. So he abides contemplating body in the body internally, externally, and both internally and externally. And he abides independent, not clinging to anything in the world. And that, monks, is how a monk abides contemplating the body in the body. So here we are contemplating the corpse. So the first type of corpse is 1, 2, or 3 days dead and is bloated and discolored and festering, smelly and all that. So when you look at this corpse, you think one day my body also will be like that. Nothing to be vain about the body. The second type of corpse, again the monks, as if he were to see a corpse in a charnel ground, thrown aside, eaten by crows, hawks or vultures, by dogs or jackals, or various other creatures, compares this body with that, thinking this body is of the same nature, it will become like that, it is not exempt from that fate. So this second type of corpse is being eaten by crows, hawks or vultures. They are tearing it apart. Because after a few days, the flesh becomes soft, rotten, and the dogs and jackals, etc., are eating it up. So we think carefully, one day all of us, our bodies also will become like that. When we are young, we are very vain. We think our body is so beautiful, we think you are so strong and all that. But in a short time, you'll be old and you'll become a corpse and you'll be exactly like this. Again, a monk, as if he were to see a corpse in a charnel ground, thrown aside, a skeleton with flesh and blood, connected by sinews, is the third one. And then a fleshless skeleton smeared with blood, connected by sinews, this is the fourth. And then the skeleton detached from the flesh and blood, connected by sinews, this is the fifth. And then randomly connected bones scattered in all directions, a hand bone here, a foot bone there, a shin bone here, a thigh bone there, a hip bone here, a spine here, a skull there. Compares this body with that. This is the sixth state of decay of the corpse. Again, the monk, as if he were to see a corpse in a charnel ground, thrown aside, the bones whitened, looking like shells, is the seventh. And then the bones piled up a year old, this is the eighth. And then the bones rotted away to powder, this is the ninth. Compares this body with that, thinking this body is of the same nature, it will become like that. It is not exempt from that fate. So he abides contemplating the body in the body internally, contemplating body in the body externally, abides contemplating body in the body both internally and externally. He abides contemplating arising factors in the body, contemplating vanishing factors in the body. He abides contemplating both arising and vanishing factors in the body. Or else, mindfulness that there is body is present to him just to the extent necessary for knowledge and awareness. And he abides independent, not clinging to anything in the world. And that, monks, is how a monk abides contemplating the body in the body. Stop here for a moment. So here we consider the corpse going through the various stages of decay. First it is 1 or 2 or 3 days dead. Then later it is being torn apart by these animals who are eating up the flesh. And then it becomes a skeleton with flesh and blood, flesh sticking here and there, and blood, and still there are sinews. And then the fourth, there's no more flesh, it's just a skeleton smeared with blood, but you still have sinews. And then the fifth is a skeleton detached from the flesh and blood, connected by sinews. And then randomly connected bones scattered in all directions. The bones are all scattered already. And then later the bones become white, looking like shells, the scattered bones. And then a year later, the bones are all piled up. Somebody has piled up the bones. And then later, much later, the bones rotted away to become powder. You don't see the flesh, you don't see the skeleton, you don't see the sinews, nothing left, just the powder which is mixed with the sand and the earth. You can't recognize it also. So there is the various stages of decay of the body, our body, how later our body will go through all these things. And how, monks, does a monk abide contemplating feelings in feelings? Here a monk, feeling a pleasant feeling, knows that he feels a pleasant feeling. Feeling a painful feeling, he knows that he feels a painful feeling. Feeling a feeling that is neither painful nor pleasant, he knows that he feels a feeling that is neither painful nor pleasant. Feeling a pleasant sensual feeling, he knows that he feels a pleasant sensual feeling. Feeling a pleasant non-sensual feeling, he knows that he feels a pleasant non-sensual feeling. Feeling a painful sensual feeling, feeling a painful non-sensual feeling. Feeling a sensual feeling that is neither painful nor pleasant. Feeling a non-sensual feeling that is neither painful nor pleasant. He knows that he feels a non-sensual feeling that is neither painful nor pleasant. So he abides contemplating feelings in feelings internally. He abides contemplating feelings in feelings externally. He abides contemplating arising factors in feelings, vanishing factors, and both arising and vanishing factors in feelings. Or else, mindfulness that there is feeling is present to him just to the extent necessary for knowledge and awareness. And he abides independent, not clinging to anything in the world. And that, monks, is how a monk abides contemplating feelings in feelings. I'll stop here for a moment. So here, if we are contemplating feelings, so you are aware of these feelings. But you can also try to practice equanimity, and also you can also ask why you feel so. Sometimes when, for example, somebody says something unpleasant to us, and then we don't like it, and then we get angry, for example. Then you ask yourself, why am I angry? Is it because of hatred in me, ill will? Or is it because of greed? I couldn't get something I want, I'm very angry. So is it because of my ego? Somebody says something I can't stand. So if you contemplate, then you find who is angry. It's the ego that's angry. The ego cannot stand. The ego, then you consider the ego is not me. So you have to examine why you react in a certain way. Why can't you just be happy? Don't let your feelings move you. We are much moved by our feelings. It causes a lot of dukkha. So if you allow the feelings to move you, then you are not in control of your feelings. Then you suffer a lot. You find people who are emotional, they suffer a lot. Now we come to contemplation of mind. And how monks, does a monk abide contemplating mind in the mind? Here a monk knows a lustful mind as lustful, a mind free from lust as free from lust, a hating mind as hating, a mind free from hate as free from hate. A deluded mind as deluded, an undeluded mind as undeluded, a contracted mind as contracted, a distracted mind as distracted, a developed mind as developed, an undeveloped mind as undeveloped, a surpassed mind as surpassed, an unsurpassed mind as unsurpassed, a concentrated mind as concentrated, an unconcentrated mind as unconcentrated, a liberated mind as liberated, an unliberated mind as unliberated. So he abides contemplating mind in mind internally, he abides contemplating mind in mind externally, or he abides contemplating arising factors in the mind, etc. Or else mindfulness that there is mind is present just to the extent necessary for knowledge and awareness, and he abides detached, not grasping at anything in the world. That, monks, is how a monk abides contemplating mind in mind. You see this part, or else mindfulness that there is mind is present just to the extent necessary for knowledge and awareness. For example, sometimes when we are doing the breath meditation, you're watching your breath go in and out, go in and out. Later, the mind the breath becomes very fine. You don't see the breath, or the sloth and torpor is very strong. Because of sloth and torpor, you cannot see the breath at all. Then, when there's as though there's no object, then you can practice this. Mindfulness that there is mind, there is awareness, is present just to the extent necessary for knowledge and awareness. You just know. Even there is no object, you have this knowing mind. What Achan Man, they call Puru, the knowing one. Always be aware of the knowing one. So when there is no object at all, then you just contemplate that, the knowing. This knowing is always there, and this knowing we take to be the self. So this contemplation of the mind, the state of the mind, you try to be aware of the state of the mind. And not only that, sometimes thoughts also, because we have a lot of thoughts in our mind. So whatever thoughts arise in your mind, also you have to look at the thoughts. For example, look at the motive of your thoughts. Why do I think in a certain way? For example, say you have a certain hatred for somebody, like consider somebody as your enemy or something, and then you ask yourself, why I think in this way? Or you want something, then you ask yourself, why? So you always look at your motive, because when we contemplate our motive, then we understand ourselves better. And then when you understand yourself better, then you can see what is stronger in you. Is it the lust that is stronger? Or is it the hatred that is stronger? Or is it the blur, the delusion that is strong? So when we understand ourselves, then only we can correct our faults. If you don't understand yourself, then you don't see your faults. How can you correct your faults? See? A lot of people never look inside. A lot of people, we always see other people's fault. And when we see other people's fault, we try to criticize people. But other people can see our faults. So if somebody tells you your fault, you should try to look whether it's true or not, instead of getting angry. A lot of people get angry because they never look inside. When you don't look inside and somebody tells you your fault, you think you are perfect. You don't have that kind of fault, you see. So you don't accept it, and then you blow your top and all these things. But the Buddha says in the suttas that if you have a teacher who can point out your faults and correct you, that is the best teacher. You must stay with him the rest of your life, because if somebody points out your faults, then only you can improve. If nobody points out your faults, then you can never improve, because it's hard to see your own fault. So it's important always to look inwards, not look outwards. Look inwards into our mind. Why we think in a certain way, why we react in a certain way, why we cannot accept something, why we get angry and all these things. Now we come to Dhamma. And how monks, does a monk abide contemplating Dhamma in Dhamma? This here, the translation in mind objects, sometimes they translate as phenomena, but the actual meaning is the Buddha's Dhamma. The contemplation of the Buddha's Dhamma is extremely important. In fact, of all these four objects, the contemplation of the Buddha's Dhamma should be the most important, because the Buddha says in the Anguttara Nikaya, there are 5 occasions when a person becomes liberated, when a person becomes an arahant. One, when he is listening to the sutta, that means the Buddha's Dhamma. Secondly, when he is teaching the Buddha's Dhamma or sutta. And then number 3, when he is reflecting on the Buddha's Dhamma. Number 4, when he is repeating the Buddha's Dhamma. As you repeat the Buddha's Dhamma, you understand and you bring it to recall it to mind. So these are the 4 occasions, and the 5th one is during meditation. So you see, to become liberated, 4 occasions have to do with understanding the Dhamma. So here, the Dhamma is the Buddha's Dhamma, and Buddha's Dhamma is the most important of all the 4 objects of Satipatthana. Okay, here a monk abides contemplating Dhamma in respect of the 5 hindrances. How does he do so? Here, monks, if sensual desire is present in himself, a monk knows that it is present. If sensual desire is absent in himself, a monk knows that it is absent. And he knows how unarisen sensual desire comes to arise, and he knows how the abandonment of arisen sensual desire comes about, and he knows how the non-arising of the abandoned sensual desire in the future will come about. If ill will is present in himself, a monk knows that it is present, etc., and he knows how the non-arising of the abandoned ill will in the future will come about. Similarly, if sloth and torpor is present in himself, a monk knows that it is present, etc. If worry and flurry, sometimes sometimes they translate it as restlessness and worry, is present in himself, a monk knows that it is present, etc., etc. If doubt is present, a monk knows that it is present, etc., etc. So here, let me finish. So he abides contemplating Dhamma in Dhamma internally. He abides, etc. Then he abides contemplating arising factors in Dhamma, or else mindfulness that there is Dhamma is present just to the extent necessary for knowledge and awareness. And he abides detached, not grasping at anything in the world. And that, monks, is how a monk abides contemplating Dhamma in respect of the 5 hindrances. So here, the first Dhamma he contemplates is the 5 hindrances. The 5 hindrances are sensual desire, ill will, sloth and torpor, restlessness and worry, and doubt. And in the suttas, the Buddha says, we are not wise or intelligent because of these 5 hindrances. Somebody who has very low IQ, the 5 hindrances will be very strong. And when the 5 hindrances are very strong, they are called hindrances because they obsess our mind, and they hinder us. That's why they are called hindrances. But if these 5 things are at a very low level, and they don't hinder you, they don't obsess your mind, then they are not called hindrances. They are only called hindrances when they are strong and obsess your mind and hinder you. So this sensual desire, if it is very strong, you find the newspaper sometimes, an old man may rape the daughter or the granddaughter because he cannot control the sensual desire. And ill will is very strong. Sometimes I've seen the newspaper, a son arguing with the father, and then he lost his temper. He took the machete, the parang, and slashed the father to death. This is ill will or anger is very strong. And if sloth and torpor is very strong, then that person is half asleep most of the time. Blur blur, as we say. And if restlessness and worry is strong, then a person cannot sit still. I see a lot of young people, they ask them to meditate or to stay quiet. They cannot. They always must go out of the house. If doubt is strong, then a person finds it hard to make a decision. Like some people, they want to. They have 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 boyfriends. Some girl they want to marry, they can't choose which one. Similarly, for a boy choosing a girl, or a person wants to choose a job, he's got a few jobs in hand, he doesn't know which one to decide. So doubt is very strong. So these 5 hindrances. So when he abides, when he contemplates the 5 hindrances, the Dhamma internally, I guess, probably refers to the 5 hindrances in himself. When he contemplates it externally, probably means the 5 hindrances in other people. Again, monks. A monk abides contemplating Dhamma in respect of the 5 aggregates of attachment or grasping. How does he do so? Here among things, such is form or body, such the arising of form, such the disappearance of form, such is feelings, such is the arising of feeling, such is the disappearance of feeling, such is perception, such the arising of perception, such the disappearance of perception, such is volition, such the arising of volition, the disappearance of volition, such is consciousness, the arising of consciousness and the disappearance of consciousness. So he abides contemplating Dhamma in Dhamma, internally, externally, internally and externally. And he abides detached, not grasping at anything in the world. And that, monks, is how a monk abides contemplating Dhamma in respect of the 5 aggregates of attachment. Stop here for a moment. So here we are talking about Panchu Padana Khanda, the 5 aggregates of attachment. These 5 aggregates of attachment are also called body and mind. The first one is body. The other 4 comprises mind, feeling, perception, volition and consciousness. So we take these 5 aggregates to be I or mind. Everybody takes these 5 aggregates to be I or mind. And because we take the 5 aggregates to be I or mind, we fight for survival, we fight for I and mine, all your possessions, all your relatives, etc. So instead of seeing the 5 aggregates are just body and mind, So because we are attached to the 5 aggregates, so when that the body becomes sick, then we think we are sick. When your son dies, then you think my son dies, and you suffer a lot. But if you think that is just body, then you won't suffer so much. So the Buddha is trying to tell us that these 5 aggregates is not I, it's not mine. We have no control over them. They came into the world, and then they arise, and they age, and they become sick, and they die. We have no control. That's why the Buddha says it's not I and mine. Again, monks. A monk abides contemplating Dhamma in respect of the 6 internal and external sense bases. How does he do so? Here a monk knows the eye, knows eye objects or sight objects, and he knows whatever factor arises dependent on the two, and he knows how an unarisen factor comes to arise, and he knows how the abandonment of an arisen factor comes about. And he knows how the non-arising of the abandoned factor in the future will come about. He knows the ear and knows sound, etc. He knows nose and smells, etc. He knows tongue and taste, etc. He knows body and tangibles, etc. He knows mind and mind objects, etc. So he knows how an unarisen factor comes to arise, and he knows how the abandonment of an arisen factor comes about, and he knows how the non-arising of the abandoned factor in the future will come about. So he abides contemplating Dhamma internally, etc. And he abides detached, not grasping at anything in the world. And that, monks, is how a monk abides contemplating Dhamma in respect of the 6 internal and external sense bases. Stop here for a moment. These 6 sense bases, Salayatana, is another very important teaching, Dhamma teaching, that we need to contemplate, because to attain liberation from suffering, we have to understand what we take to be I and mine, and this 6 sense bases is another that we need to understand. If you contemplate, if you analyze these 6 sense bases, I, ear, nose, tongue, body and mind, it's also basically body and mind, because the eye, ear, nose, tongue, body is the body part, and then the mind is the mind part. So it's a little similar to the 5 aggregates. Again, monks. A monk abides contemplating Dhamma in respect of the 7 factors of enlightenment. That's the Bojjhangas. How does he do so? Here, monks, if the enlightenment factor of mindfulness is present in himself, a monk knows that it is present. If the enlightenment factor of mindfulness is absent in himself, he knows that it is absent. This word mindfulness is not the sampajanya, This word is sati. This refers to sati, and sati, a better translation is recollection. That means you are mindful of a specific object, not general mindfulness. It's a specific mindfulness, sati. And he knows how the unarisen enlightenment factor of mindfulness comes to arise. And he knows how the complete development of the enlightenment factor of mindfulness comes about. If the enlightenment factor of investigation of Dhamma is present in himself, etc., the enlightenment factor of energy, enlightenment factor of delight, enlightenment factor of tranquility, enlightenment factor of concentration, enlightenment factor of equanimity is present. The monk knows that it is present, etc. So he abides contemplating Dhamma in Dhamma. In respect of the 7 factors of enlightenment. Just stop here for a moment. These 7 factors of enlightenment, if we practice it thoroughly, then we can become enlightened, and they are very important factors that can bring about enlightenment. The first one is sati. Sati is specific mindfulness. Actually, the practice of these 7 factors of enlightenment is explained very well, very detailed in the Bojjhanga Samyutta of the Samyutta Nikaya, which I went through those suttas 2 years ago, and I explained that very clearly. So if you want to understand more about the 7 factors of enlightenment, you must listen to those suttas. There are many suttas in the Bojjhanga Samyutta concerning the 7 factors of enlightenment. Again, monks, a monk abides contemplating Dhamma in respect of the 4 noble truths. How does he do so? Here a monk knows as it really is, this is suffering. He knows as it really is, this is the origin of suffering. He knows as it really is, this is the cessation of suffering. He knows as it really is, this is the way of practice leading to the cessation of suffering. And what, monks, is the noble truth of suffering? Birth is suffering, aging is suffering, dying is suffering, sorrow, lamentation, pain, grief and despair are suffering. Being attached to the unloved is suffering. Being separated from the loved is suffering. Not getting what one wants is suffering. In short, the 5 aggregates of attachment are suffering. And what, monks, is birth? In whatever beings, of whatever group of beings, there is birth, coming to be, coming forth, the appearance of the aggregates, the acquisition of the sense bases. That, monks, is called birth. And what is aging? In whatever beings, of whatever group of beings, there is aging, decrepitude, broken teeth, grey hair, wrinkled skin, shrinking with age, decay of the sense faculties. That, monks, is called aging. And what is dying? In whatever beings, of whatever group of beings, there is a passing away, a removal, a cutting off, a disappearance, a death, a dying, an ending, a cutting off of the aggregates, a discarding of the body. That, monks, is called death or dying. And what is sorrow? Whenever by any kind of misfortune anyone is affected by something of a painful nature, sorrow, mourning, distress, inward grief, inward woe, that, monks, is called sorrow. And what is lamentation? Whenever by any kind of misfortune anyone is affected by something of a painful nature, and there is crying out, lamenting, making much noise for grief, making great lamentation, that, monks, is called lamentation. And what is pain? Whatever bodily painful feeling, bodily unpleasant feeling, painful or unpleasant feeling results from bodily contact, that, monks, is called pain. And what is sadness? Whatever mental painful feeling, mental unpleasant feeling, painful or unpleasant sensation resulting from mental contact, that, monks, is called sadness. And what is distress? Whenever by any kind of misfortune anyone is affected by something of a painful nature, distress, great distress, affliction with distress, with great distress, that, monks, is called distress. And what, monks, is being attached to the unloved? Here, whoever has unwanted, disliked, unpleasant sight, objects, sounds, smells, tastes, tangibles, or mind objects, or whoever encounters ill wishes, wishes of harm, of discomfort, of insecurity, with whom they have concourse, intercourse, connection, union, that, monks, is called being attached to the unloved. And what is being separated from the loved? Here, whoever has what is wanted, like pleasant sight objects, sounds, smells, tastes, tangibles, or mind objects, or whoever encounters well wishes, wishes of good, of comfort, of security, mother or father or brother or sister or younger kinsman, or friends or colleagues or blood relation, and then is deprived of such concourse, intercourse, connection, or union, that, monks, is called being separated from the loved. And what is not getting what one wants? In being subject to birth, monks, this wish arises, oh, that we were not subject to birth, that we might not come to birth, but this cannot be gained by wishing. That is not getting what one wants. In being subject to aging, to sickness, to death, to sorrow, lamentation, pain, sadness and distress. This wish arises, oh, that we were not subject to aging, etc., etc., that we might not come to these things. But this cannot be gained by wishing. That is not getting what one wants. And how monks, in short, are the 5 aggregates of attachment suffering. They are as follows. The aggregate of attachment, that is body, feeling, perception, volition, consciousness. These are in short the 5 aggregates of attachment that are suffering. And that, monks, is called the noble truth of suffering. Stop here for a moment. So this is a long list of what is meant by suffering. Okay, you can slowly go through that. And what, monks, is the noble truth of the origin of suffering? It is that craving which gives rise to rebirth, bound up with pleasure and lust, finding fresh delight now here, now there. That is to say, sensual craving, craving for existence, and craving for non-existence. And where does this craving arise and establish itself? Wherever in the world there is anything agreeable and pleasurable, there this craving arises and establishes itself. And what is there in the world that is agreeable and pleasurable? The eye in the world is agreeable and pleasurable. The ear, nose, tongue, body and mind in the world is agreeable and pleasurable, and there this craving arises and establishes itself. Sights, sounds, smells, tastes, tangibles, mind objects in the world are agreeable and pleasurable, and there this craving arises and establishes itself. Eye, consciousness, ear, consciousness, nose, consciousness, tongue, consciousness, body, consciousness, mind, consciousness in the world is agreeable and pleasurable, and there this craving arises and establishes itself. Eye contact, ear contact, nose contact, tongue contact, body contact, mind contact in the world is agreeable and pleasurable, and there this craving arises and establishes itself. Feeling born of eye contact, ear contact, nose contact, tongue contact, body contact, mind contact in the world is agreeable and pleasurable, and there this craving arises and establishes itself. The perception of sights, sounds, smells, tastes, tangibles, mind objects in the world is agreeable and pleasurable, and there this craving arises and establishes itself. Volition, in regard to sights, sounds, smells, tastes, tangibles, mind objects in the world is agreeable and pleasurable, and there this craving arises and establishes itself. The craving for sights, sounds, smells, tastes, tangibles, mind objects in the world is agreeable and pleasurable, and there this craving arises and establishes itself. Thinking of sights, sounds, smells, tastes, etc. Pondering on sights, sounds, smells, tastes, etc. And that, monks, is called the noble truth of the origin of suffering. Stop here for a moment. So this origin of suffering is the craving, and craving arises because there is something agreeable and pleasurable. In other words, something that gives us pleasant feeling, we crave for it. Because it gives us pleasant feeling, we want it again and again. So craving and attachment arises. But if you delight in something, after a while, you sian already, you get tired of it. For example, if you listen to a new music, then you think it's very nice. But if it's, somebody plays it too often, then you get tired of it. But if somebody plays it non-stop, then you get sick and tired of it, and you can't stand it. So that's why you see here, it says finding fresh delight now here, now there. So when you enjoy something, you delight in something, it's only for a certain period. After a while, you jelak already, you don't want it anymore. You want to find something else. After a while, you get tired of it. For example, you like to eat Kentucky chicken. But every day, if they serve you with Kentucky chicken, after a while, you get sick and tired of it. So you want to find fresh delight now here, now there, somewhere else. So you keep changing. That's the problem with life. Life can never be satisfied. You enjoy worldly things, you can never find satisfaction. Only for a short while you find satisfaction, and then you want something else. And what monks is the noble truth of the cessation of suffering, is a complete fading away and extinction of this craving, is forsaking and abandonment, liberation from it, detachment from it. And how does this craving come to be abandoned? And how does its cessation come about? Wherever in the world there is anything agreeable and pleasurable, there its cessation comes about. And what is there in the world that is agreeable and pleasurable? The eye in the world is agreeable and pleasurable. The ear, nose, tongue, body, mind. Eye consciousness, ear consciousness, nose consciousness, etc. Sight, sound, smell, taste, tangibles, mind, objects. Eye contact, ear contact, nose contact, etc. Volition in regard to sight, sound, smells, etc. Thinking of sight, sound, smells, etc. Pondering on sight, sound, smells, etc. And there this craving comes to an end. There cessation comes about. That, monks, is called the noble truth of the cessation of suffering. Stop here for a moment. So the cessation of suffering is to cut off the craving, forsaking and abandonment of that craving. So wherever the craving arises in the world from sight, sound, smell, taste, etc., or other things, we have to make it extinct, forsake it, abandon it, detach from it. That is how cessation of suffering comes about. And what, monks, is the noble truth of the way of practice leading to the cessation of suffering? It is just this noble eightfold path, namely right view, right thoughts, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, right concentration. And what, monks, is right view? It is, monks, the knowledge of suffering, the knowledge of the origin of suffering, the knowledge of the cessation of suffering, and the knowledge of the way of practice leading to the cessation of suffering. This is called right view. And what, monks, is right thought? The thought of renunciation, thought of non-ill will, thought of harmlessness. This, monks, is called right thoughts. And what, monks, is right speech? Refraining from lying, refraining from slander or carrying tales to cause disharmony, refraining from that. Refraining from harsh speech or coarse speech, refraining from frivolous speech or gossip. This is called right speech. And what, monks, is right action? Refraining from taking life, refraining from taking what is not given, refraining from sexual misconduct. This is called right action. And what, monks, is right livelihood? Here, monks, the Aryan disciple, having given up wrong livelihood, keeps himself by right livelihood. And what, monks, is right effort? Stop here for a moment. This right livelihood is to find your livelihood in a way that does not harm oneself and others. And what, monks, is right effort? Here, monks, a monk arouses his will, makes an effort, stirs up energy, exerts his mind, and strives to prevent the arising of unarisen, evil, unwholesome mental states. Similarly, he arouses his will to overcome evil, unwholesome mental states that have arisen. Thirdly, he arouses his will to produce unarisen, wholesome mental states. Fourthly, he arouses his will to maintain wholesome mental states that have arisen. This is called right effort. And what, monks, is right mindfulness or right recollection? Here, monks, a monk abides contemplating the body in the body, ardent, clearly aware and mindful. Similarly, abides contemplating feelings in feelings, mind in mind, Dhamma in Dhamma. This is called right mindfulness. And what, monks, is right concentration? Here, a monk, detached from sense desires, detached from unwholesome mental states, enters and remains in the first jhana. Similarly, with the second jhana, third jhana, fourth jhana. This is called right concentration. And that, monks, is called the way of practice leading to the cessation of suffering. So he abides contemplating Dhamma in Dhamma internally, contemplating mind, Dhamma in Dhamma externally, both internally and externally. He abides contemplating arising factors in Dhamma, vanishing factors in Dhamma, arising and vanishing factors in Dhamma. Or else mindfulness that there is Dhamma is present just to the extent necessary for knowledge and awareness. And he abides detached, not grasping at anything in the world. And that, monks, is how a monk abides contemplating Dhamma in respect of the Four Noble Truths. Whoever monks should practice these 4 intense states of mindfulness for just 7 years may expect one of 2 results, either arahantship in this life, or if there should be some substrate left, the state of non-returner or anagamin. Let alone 7 years. Whoever should practice them for 6 years, 5 years, 4 years, 3 years, 2 years, 1 year may expect one of 2 results similarly. Let alone 1 year. Whoever should practice them for 7 months, 6 months, 5, 4, 3 months, 1 month, half a month, let alone half a month. Whoever should practice these 4 intense states of mindfulness for just 1 week or 7 days may expect one of 2 results, either arahantship in this life, or if there should be some substrate left, the state of non-returner, anagamin. It was said, there is, monks, this one-way path to the purification of beings, for the overcoming of sorrow and distress, for the disappearance of pain and sadness, for the gaining of the right path, for the realization of nibbana, that is to say, the 4 intense states of mindfulness. And it is for this reason that it was said. Thus the Lord spoke, and the monks rejoiced and were delighted at his words. That's the end of the sutta. So here you see the last part, the Buddha says, you really practice the 4 satipatthanas for 1 week, you can become an arahant. So you think carefully, if you just practice mindfulness for 1 week, can you become an arahant? No. But because it is intense state of mindfulness, intense means unremitting mindfulness on one object. Unremitting, not even for a second, your mindfulness slips. That means you don't really sleep. So you see, somebody like Mahamoggallana, he became enlightened in 7 days, the shortest period for any arahant, any of the Buddha's disciples. How did he do it in 7 days? He didn't sleep. That's why in the suttas we find he was able to enter the first jhana. Then after that, the sloth and torpor came and he started to nod his head. Then the Buddha was watching him from afar using psychic power. Then the Buddha came out of his body in a golden body out to the head and went to him and told him, Moggallana, be mindful, don't be drowsy. Then he got a shock. He didn't expect the Buddha to come all the way from so far to in the middle of the night to tell him to be mindful. So then immediately he strove harder. So for 7 nights that he didn't sleep. So he knew the Buddha was watching him all the time. So he practiced extremely hard. So 7 days, 7 nights, he became enlightened. That is what I mean by intense states of mindfulness. Normally you see, like here they translate it on the foundations of mindfulness. You practice the foundations of mindfulness, you won't become enlightened in 7 days. But you can become enlightened in 7 days if you practice intense state of mindfulness, which means unremitting mindfulness, unslipping mindfulness on one object. Say for example the breathing. You're mindful of the breathing without slipping. And then you can attain the jhanas one by one, up to the 4 jhanas. And when a person attains the 4 jhanas, the mind is very strong. When the mind is very strong, then you have cut down the 5 hindrances to a very low level, which means the sloth and torpor is very low. Then only you can maintain your mindfulness without sleeping. If your mindfulness is not cut to a very low level, how can you stop yourself from sleeping? That's why the 4 jhanas are extremely important in the Buddha's teaching. Only by attaining the 4 jhanas, the Buddha says that you can become an anagamin or an arahant. Without the 4 jhanas, there is no way you can become anagamin or an arahant. I will stop here.
You just talk about unremitting mindfulness of one object. Can we take the body as one object? Literally, we can contemplate
Take what?
Take body as a whole. I mean, in the sutta, contemplating body as a lot of different objects, right? Can we take the body as a whole, as one object?
Yes, yes.
Then we can contemplate briefly at one time and the 32 parts at the other time. Right?
Yes, the point of this Satipatthana or unremitting mindfulness or intense state of mindfulness, the object, the motive is to attain the jhanas. And after you attain the jhanas, you have to attain up to the 4 jhanas according to the Buddha's words. And after you have attained the 4 jhanas, and then you come out of the 4 jhanas, and then you contemplate, for example, the 4 noble truths, and then you will understand, and then you can attain enlightenment. So in the suttas, the Buddha always says, enlightenment, you need both samatha and vipassana. The samatha part is to attain the 4 jhanas. The vipassana part is to contemplate the Buddha's Dhamma.
Okay, I think quite understand what how the Buddha explained to overcome the 5 hindrances. He just said to know when you're ill will, ill will.
Oh no. That is just contemplating the 5 hindrances. But to get rid of the 5 hindrances, in some other suttas, it says that you have to attain jhana. When you attain jhana, then the 5 hindrances disappear or are eliminated. It means it is cut down to a very low degree so that it is no more a hindrance to you. So the only way is to attain the jhanas.
But let's say let's look at the first jhana. Is it reversible?
When a person attains the jhanas, it is reversible. So a person has to keep practicing. But because that person has attained the jhana, it is not too difficult for him to regain it if he loses it. In the suttas, there was a disciple of the Buddha. He attained quite a high state of jhana, and then he mixed with a lot of people, and I think one of the arahants rebuked him, and one of the arahants foresaw that he would lose his jhana, and sure enough, after some time he lost his jhana. But later he practiced again and he regained it. For example, Devadatta is a good example. He attained all the 4 rupa jhanas and 4 arupas and had psychic power, but because of the ego and not attaining right view, he became very vain and wanted to take over the Buddha's place. And when the Buddha refused him and scolded him in front of everybody, he got so angry he wanted to kill the Buddha. Then he lost all his psychic powers and he lost his jhana.
He says that contemplate the body internally, and contemplate the body externally. What do you mean by both internally and externally?
Both your own body and both outside other people's body.
But that really explained by internally and externally, but that both externally.
Yeah, both at the same time.
Both at the same time.
Both. Sometimes you're contemplating. If you're contemplating your body internally, that means you only contemplate your body and not contemplate other people's body. Okay? Then when you're contemplating externally, you're contemplating other people's body and not yours at all. Right? You are contemplating both. Sometimes you contemplate yours, sometimes you contemplate outside.
So you switch from your body, then you also switch to, let's say, are you visualizing?
Depends on what you... not necessary. When you are sitting in meditation, you're walking about, also you can contemplate.
Whether you open your eyes or your eyes closed, is it a form of visualization when you contemplate? or you contemplate in words, or you read, you keep reading. For example, the 2 months, can I keep reading?
Contemplate means thinking about it. Thinking about it.
Also, I think one of them said review. What did he use for the contemplate? But this time now we use review, for example, the 4 elements.
Review means recapitulate, to go through again.
Then I read one book which seems to say that for the 9 Dhamma ground contemplation, it actually advises the photo, the 9 photos.
Say again?
9 corpse photo. Because it isn't a real corpse for you to see the whole.
Oh, no. This is Buddha's time. They contemplate the corpse. They really go and see.
So the book says, using photo may not work.
Here the sutta doesn't say use photo.
Because the Taiwan seems to be better to see campaign and those Suba video that you saw. So I thought sometimes when I contemplate, I actually try to remember
I have some photos. Probably Sri Lanka. They brought a corpse into a cave. And they left into the cave for the monks to contemplate. So this photo shows the monk sitting there contemplating for many days. Of course, mealtime he'll go and eat, and then he come back and then look at the corpse again, stay there many hours looking at the corpse. Must be very smelly, but he stay there just to see the various stages of decay, the worms and all that, maggots and all that.
Can you advise how to how you review the body? Because it's quite different.
4 elements. 4 elements, I guess, because I mentioned just now, these 4 elements, they are just a perception. So if you contemplate, not only your body, all physical things in the world are characterized by these 4 things. And these 4 things, because they are perceptions, they are just a movement of the mind. Just a movement of the mind. So everything that is physical is also in the mind, in consciousness. That's, probably some other teachers will tell you another way.
Those other ways, is it practical to practice?
Well, you have to decide.
Regarding contemplation of body internally and externally, I find it hard to how do you actually contemplate another person's body? Like you don't know what's in the other person's body and whether
You also don't know your own body.
at least I know about the stomach, I know about the lung in my body.
That's not what it means. What it means is to consider the nature of your body. Like head hair, body hair, nails, teeth, skin, flesh, all this. Then if you consider yourself in terms of the 4 elements, you have the heat in you, you have the hardness in you or softness, different parts of your body. There are some parts are hard, there are some parts that are soft, isn't it, in your body. There are some parts that are warm, there are some parts that are not so warm. And there's movement of air in your body, the different types of air in your body that makes your blood move, that makes your wind move, and all these things, that make your tears flow, and all these things. And then the other one, the liquids. There's so many types of liquids in your body. You can contemplate the blood, urine, pus, phlegm, snot, mucus, oil of the joints, etc. Grease that comes out from your skin, all this sweat and all these things. So all these things in your body, you can contemplate in terms in this type of thing, in this sense. And then if you think of other people's also, You can think other people's sweat is just as smelly as mine. Other people's body are just as ugly as mine.
What would be an example of pleasant non-sensual feeling?
Pleasant non-sensual feeling. Okay, sensual and non-sensual. Sensual, I guess, refers to the 5 senses. That means from the eye, ear, nose, tongue and body. The feeling arises because of seeing, because of hearing a sound. A pleasant feeling arises because of seeing, because of hearing a sound, because of smell, taste and touch or contact, body contact. Pleasant feeling arises. That is a pleasant sensual feeling. And then a pleasant non-sensual feeling is something from the mind. Because you think of something and then you're happy. That's a pleasant non-sensual feeling.
The mental state apart. In other words, that's not the the best way is actually looking for mindfulness, of course, but under the foundation. It should be the person, should be at all times, as much as possible, be mindful of the mental state.
Of the mental state.
Especially the mental state. If it's not, doing the breath or reflection of the bodies, the most important to me is the mental state. That is how the mind reacts to what we see, what we hear, and it should be a very independent kind of mindfulness. Otherwise, you get sucked into the asaras.
You see, we contemplate the mental state for I think a different reason. We contemplate the mental state, we contemplate feelings to understand yourself better, so that you can reduce your defilements. If you contemplate your mind, your mental state, then you are more aware of your defilements, then you can reduce it. But if you contemplate your mental state, can you attain jhana? You cannot.
I don't mean contemplate, I mean watch it. All time you watch your mind.
Okay, you watch your mind also, that is just to make you understand yourself, to see your defilements, right? But they will not bring you into jhana. So if you want to attain jhana, then you have to contemplate your body.
So you have to finally go to the best executor place to contemplate.
Yeah, if you want to attain jhana, because jhana, it depends on what you want. As a layman, probably you think jhana is not important for you. So as a layman, you want to watch your mind to see your defilements, so that you don't have too much defilements, don't make you suffer so much and don't make people around you suffer so much. Then you contemplate your mind and your feelings. But if you are a serious monk who wants to attain liberation, then he wants to attain the jhanas. And to attain the jhanas, then he wants to go into a cave, a quiet place, and meditate on his breath, and only his breath, until he attains one-pointedness of mind, and enter the first jhana. And from the first jhana, he goes to the second jhana and all these things. So, that is for a monk.
Those brackets that they put inside in the after the body part, after the breath, they put bracket across inside. So they are lost and so on and so on. Those are actually the insight, which is not really thinking about it, right? That is the insight. That's why people back at insight. You know what I mean?
The inside part, the inside part probably is he wants to understand, so he contemplates, for example, arising factors in the body, vanishing factors in the body, to understand what factors cause the body to arise, what factors cause the body to deteriorate, to die and all that. So arising factors, for example, what sustains the body, what caused the body to arise in the first place, and what sustains the body. For example, the body is dependent on food, on good weather, on clothing and all that. And then vanishing factors is like the body one day must grow old, must become sick before it dies. And if you don't have the supporting conditions, that will cause the body to disappear. So this is like to understand more the nature of the body. Okay. Are you talking about the page 336?
336,
yeah.
Because it seems like after major, the bad one. Because I thought at first the mindfulness of the other insight, I thought it was as some of the classes say, it's an insight, it's a vipassana that arises because of jhana. After that we come out, that is what we realize. I thought that is the meaning of this insight. That is not the case. Can I also confirm what I think? Under the insight, he avoids contemplating arising phenomena factor around the body and vanishing factor. When the person is doing the anapanasati awareness of breathing, is he actually contemplating why the person breathes, why the breath goes inside the body?
No. When you are contemplating the breath, you are only mindful of the breath going in and going out. You don't want to think. But this one, when he is not when he is not trying to attain jhana, then he can consider what is it that supports the breath, what is it that causes the breath to disappear and all these things, to understand better. That understanding part is not to attain jhana.
One more question. The vipassana meditation nowadays also has its base in the Mahasatipatthana Sutta. And do you think they misunderstand the Sutta? And in what way do you?
The present interpretation of the Satipatthana Sutta by the people who practice vipassana, you see, this vipassana method that is taught now comes from the commentaries. And in the commentaries, they say that a person, there are 5 types of persons who become arahant, which is contradictory to the suttas. So that being the case, their interpretation of the Satipatthana is also contradictory to the real intent of the Buddha. Because in the Buddha's words, there is a sutta in the Majjhima Nikaya. The Buddha says, to eliminate the 5 lower factors, you need to attain the 4 jhanas. In other words, to become an anagamin or an arahant, you need to eliminate the 4. You need to attain the 4 jhanas. So the condition to become an arahant or anagamin is the 4 jhanas. But in the commentaries, they say there are 5 types of arahant. There is one who has attained 4 jhanas. There's one who has attained 3 jhanas. This is not possible. There's one who has attained 2 jhanas. Also not possible. There's one who has attained 1 jhana. Also not possible. And then there's one that has no jhana. And then they use this last one. They call it the pure vipassana arahant. And then they use this to say that you can practice pure vipassana meditation without any jhana. So they interpret the practice of Satipatthana in terms of kanika samadhi, momentary concentration, which is not mentioned by the Buddha at all, because it's such a ordinary samadhi. Everybody has momentary concentration. That means you are mindful of one object after another, mindful object of one, which everybody has. So they use that to say you can practice Satipatthana by this way, using only momentary concentration, no need to attain jhana. But you look here, when he talks about the 4 noble truths, let me see, under page what? Okay, page 349. What is right concentration? Here, right concentration is first jhana, second jhana, third and fourth jhana. So how can you practice Satipatthana without the 4 jhanas? Here is very clear, it says the 4 jhanas, isn't it? So what do you think? You think the interpretation that you can practice Satipatthana without the 4 jhanas is correct or not? Also, if you listen to the Samyutta Nikaya talks or read the Samyutta Nikaya, you find that in the Satipatthana Samyutta, there is one sutta where the Buddha gave a simile of the cook. And in that sutta, the Buddha says, a skillful monk, if he practices Satipatthana, he must end up with concentration, must attain the jhanas. But another unskillful monk, he practices Satipatthana and then he does not end up with concentration. He does not get the jhanas. That is the unskillful way of practicing. So the skillful way of practicing, it must end up with jhana. That's why I say it is intense state, unremitting mindfulness. That's why I always say that it's important to study many suttas. Some people, they just study Satipatthana Sutta and they say, no need jhana. Even this Mahasatipatthana Sutta, I say that you need the 4 jhanas. But in the shorter one, the Satipatthana Sutta in the Majjhima Nikaya, it does not talk about the 4 noble truths. Because it does not talk about the 4 noble truths, it doesn't mention about right concentration. But here, when it mentions about right concentration, then definitely 4 jhanas are necessary. Otherwise, a person, if he does not attain the 4 jhanas, then he is practicing the nobles, the unnoble 7-fold path. The noble path is the noble 8-fold path. The ignoble path is the 7-fold path.
And to cultivate jhana using Satipatthana, one of the most important factors is that we cultivate body as the body, or feeling as feeling, mind as mind. This is very important.
Body in the body.
Body in the body.
So especially the body one. If you want to attain jhana, you must contemplate the body, like Anapanasati or the 32 parts of the body. Shall we end here tonight?